Hi you guys, it's Karen with Love Your Land. If you're new here, my name is Karen obviously, and I've been gardening for about 14 years, and I've been putting out YouTube videos about gardening for about 12 years. All of my seed starting videos have been standard seed starting, meaning in pots, and starting them in smaller pots and potting up and everything that goes along with that. Obviously, if you can't tell, in this video we're going to be talking about soil blocking, which is something that I just started this year. Now, what we're not going to do in this video, it's going to be the next video, what we're not going to do in this video is actually soil block. But hang on, don't run away. The reason for it is I just went through this whole experience. I just had this whole experience of, I watched a million videos on soil blocking and I thought I was ready and I thought I knew everything. It's pretty basic, right? I mean, it really is pretty basic. And we will talk about how basic it is also. But there are some nuances to soil blocking, things you have to consider when you're soil blocking that you don't ever even have to think about when you're growing seedlings in pots or plug trays, basically anything where they're separated by plastic. So soil blocking is a little bit different in that regard. And so if I had known these things that I'm about to share with you, if I had known them when I first started soil blocking, I wouldn't have made the mistakes that I made. And I would have had just that much more success. So we're going to do this first. So in case, maybe you're on the fence about soil blocking, or maybe this is the first video you've ever watched about soil blocking or whatever, but you haven't started soil blocking is my point. Hopefully, by watching this video first, again, we'll talk about different things that you wouldn't think about, and it'll give you a better start to actually soil blocking when the time comes for you, right? Okay, so let's get started. What is soil blocking? So we're gonna start right there. Soil blocking is the practice of basically making pots out of blocks of soil. So instead of, one thing I didn't bring in today is plastic pots because you've seen them. So instead of starting your seeds in the little 3-inch pots or plug trays or whatever it is you normally use, but plastic pots, you use a soil blocker, and I have 3 here to show you the different sizes. But you mix up your seed starting mix or potting soil, whichever you choose to use. And again, we'll go over that in the next video, how the consistency and all of that. But you make you get your soil potting mix, seed starting mix, whatever, ready, and then you use these blockers to form these blocks. Now, obviously this is, if you can see this, not against my black shirt, there you go. This is a 2-inch soil block, so it was made from the 2-inch soil blocker right here. Does this have, yeah. So they can be little bitty tiny ones like this. They could be these 2-inch soil blockers. They could be these, I don't even know what this is, 4-inch soil blocker. It's a big one. And this right here, these 3 are from Ladbrokes. There are other brands, and I have some more over here to show you in a second, but these 3 are kind of like the basic for the nesting system. So you can start your soil blocks off in the 3/4 inch blocker like this. It makes 3/4 inch blocks. They're actually 5/8, but that's confusing. So we all say 3/4 inch. And they make these little teeny tiny soil blocks. In this 8x10 tray, I have 80 plants, basically. Well, some haven't come up yet, but I have 80 soil blocks. So I will be starting 80 plants on this tray. That's pretty remarkable. Let me see if I can pick one up for you. I can. I'll show you how small these are. Oopsie, kicked the camera, sorry. See how small they are? They're just little bitty babies, okay? They're great. I mean, I say they're great because I'm really into this, as you might have been able to tell. So let's say, we're cooking along here with these for a while, and they grow out of, they're getting too big for these little micro soil blocks. So then you make some soil blocks with your 2-inch soil blocker. Find one with a good void in it. If you can see here, I'm not going to bring it up there, but there's little black blocks in there, and they actually come out. Up here, you can squeeze them and they'll come out, and you could put different types of, you can put a dibbler in there or whatever. But this in particular is for this nesting system. So these get to where they need to be in normal seed starting, potted up, right? But we're not using pots, so we're going to block them up. So you would use your 2-inch blocker with these 3/4 inch blocks in here, which when you make your soil block is going to leave a 2-inch, not a 2-inch, a 3/4 inch void right in the center. I'm not sure if you can see that, but use your imagination. That little black block pushed a void into this block when we made it. And then when it's time to pot up or block up, in this case, you're just going to take your little 3/4 inch seed or start, and you're going to put it right in that block, and they're going to grow and grow and grow. Now, if you had, let's say these were tomatoes and you start really early like I do, you might get to a point where, you start your tomatoes here, you block them up into the 2-inch blocks. They're doing great, but they get about here and you still have 3 weeks left before you can plant them outside. And you're like, yeah, you can see they're kind of suffering for being in these little blocks. Then you can use this big guy. I don't know if you, yes, you can. And this has, again, another insert in there, but it's a fixed insert and it's a 2-inch block. So when you make your soil block with this one, it's going to leave a 2-inch void in the top of this block. And then you can take this block that you put your little tomato in here, and you can block this up into the great big one. So that's the nesting system. And we'll talk more about all of these things in just a minute. So what are the benefits of soil blocking? Number one, air pruning. So if you've ever grown in pots, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you have, there comes a point where your plants might get root bound. And what does that mean? How does that happen? So if you're growing in a regular pot, wish I had one, but if you're growing in a regular plastic pot, when the roots reach outside the soil, they get to the plastic and then they don't know where to go. And so they have nowhere to go. So they just circle the pot. And that's how you end up with that whole like webbing of roots around your plant. And that makes for a less healthy plant. It's a stressed plant. When you plant it outside, the plants, if they're truly root bound, they have a very hard time sort of teasing out their own roots and untangling and setting roots. So it takes them longer to get going. I mean, I've watched this happen with my own plants for 14 years. So that doesn't happen with soil blocks. Instead, what happens, because they're just on these trays, they're sort of open air, and there's a lot of airflow. So when the roots reach the edge of the soil and they hit air, they terminate that direction of that root. They don't terminate the root. People say that and it sounds like we're killing off roots. That's not what happens. They just stop that direction and go a different direction back into the soil. So if this had plants in it or a plant in it and it was all a fully mature plant, I could show you one over there, but we'll get to that. You would see a little roots just a 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch, whatever, poking out the side, and then they just sort of go back in. So it creates a structure in your soil block, and it's just a far healthier plant. And the plants won't be stressed when you put them out, and it's just a much gentler approach. So when you take your soil block and you've hardened them off, by the way, you have to harden off soil block plants the same as you would if they were in pots. So if you don't know what hardening off is, I have a video from years ago about hardening off. You can go back and look at it, or just type hardening off plants in the YouTube search bar and you'll get a million videos. But anyway, when you've hardened them off, you just take your little soil block, dig your little hole and set it in there. Now, how is that different from a pot? Well, first of all, maybe you're having plug trays and they're all stuck together. So that's the first time you're ripping roots apart. The second time is if the roots have grown through the pot holes in the bottom and they're on the outside of the pot. Now, when you pull that plant out, you are ripping the roots. That's time number 2 that you're ripping the roots. And then you plant them in the ground, and again, they have to tease out their own roots, and it takes them a long time. So this is very gentle. Pots are actually quite violent compared. So there's that. You're also not using a bunch of plastic pots. And you also don't have to wash and store plastic pots and trays at the end of the year. You do have to wash your trays at some point. I wish I had extra trays here, but I don't. But you can just take these in particular. I'm going to talk about different options, but these are fiberglass food trays. And you can just stick these in the dishwasher. They'll last forever. They're very sturdy and strong. They won't bend at all. But again, you can put them right in the dishwasher. So that whole task at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, whatever, but washing your pots, it's a whole lot harder to wash a little pot with crevices, or even a tray with all these crevices in here. This is, you're for sure hand washing these, right? As opposed to these you can put right in the dishwasher. Now we'll talk about some other pot trays in a minute, but let me just finish this part. Less space. So these take up a lot less space. I should have counted how many plants I have growing over there, but I mean, just imagine, I can do a quick count just by looking. So these, again, everything I'm starting seeds on in soil blocks and growing them on are on these 8x10 trays. And I'll talk about that again. I will also talk about that in a minute. But each one of these that have the 3/4 inch blocks have 80 plants or 80, they're seeded soil blocks. So there's 80 soil blocks on each of these. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did I count this one? 6. So whatever 6 times 80 is, 480? Is that right? I don't know. I can't do math, but that you probably can. And it's a lot of plants. And I'm only taking up space on 2 racks right now for everything, even the ones that are in the 2-inch soil blocks. So it is a humongous space saver. Now, eventually the plants, will get bigger. If you have to transplant into these, now you have to, be using another rack or whatever. So there's that. And also there are a lot of seeds. Now I haven't done this yet and I will do it and I will report back on what happens. But one problem that I have always had, and I don't know if it's just my area or a part of it is me, I know, but direct sowing seeds outside. Now I still will direct sow some seeds outside, but every time I do, sorry, I hit my mic. Every time I seed them, it takes a bunch of time. I'm so proud of it. I take pictures and then here come the birds. First of all, my backyard is sort of a bird sanctuary, not for real, but there's a lot of birds up here and they just hone right in on it. Oh, dog. And if it's not the birds, it's wind and the seeds get blown away. If it's not the birds, if it's not wind, it's the fact that it's winter and I'm in Colorado, so I can't have hoses hooked up, I should say, all year long. So for me to go out and water, it's really dry here. So I would have to water my seeds every single day that are direct sown outside. And so I'd have to take my hose from inside the garage. This is like a 100-foot hose. And I've done it, but then I stop because I have to take the hose, bring it outside, hook it up, drag it out there, water the plants, then unhook it, drain all the water out of it, wrap it back up, bring it back into the garage. And if you think I'm doing that every single day, you're nuts. I am not doing that every single day. So the only seeds anymore that I will direct sow are if it's fall and our hoses are still plugged in and I can get these plants established, but that's really only going to be like garlic, really. Or if it's late enough in spring where we can, hook our hoses back up, then I'll do that then. But there's all this time in between I could be growing stuff. And so what I'm going to do, and I know this sounds crazy, but I'm going to start things in the house like carrots. So I'm not going to go through an exhaustive list of all of the weird things that you would normally just direct sow. They're not weird, but all the things that you would direct sow outside, I'm not going to go through all those, but just imagine. Let me take this plastic wrap off here so you can see these a little better. I'm going to start carrot seeds. Again, I can't promise you that this is going to work out, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to start carrot seeds in these, but I don't know when. I have to look at when I can plant carrots seedlings out. Their minimum temperature requirements. So that way I don't have to, birds aren't going to come and pluck my seedlings out of the ground. That's not what they do. They take seeds. So I'm going to start carrots in these trays and I'm going to put them out when it's time. I'm also going to start onions in them. And I know there's going to be most of you actually probably who are like, why would you even bother? You just get the 4-inch pot, you broadcast them in there, you water them, they come up, you trim them, they grow some more, you trim them, and then when it comes time to plant them out, you dump them out, you tease them all out, and you plant them. Well, the process right there, what I said, of dumping them out, teasing them all out, I kill so many of my onion seedlings every year by doing that. Or they just flop right over, and then no bulb. So I just want to try this way, like just humor me. And I will report back. So I'm going to start my onion seeds in these. I actually have a set of 20, so one set of these, with bunching onions over there. But I'm going to do that. And then when it comes time to plant them outside, again, I'll harden them off and I'll be able to take the little, I'm not ripping anything apart. I'm just going to take my little 3/4 inch soil block and I'm going to gently set it in the ground. He's going to stay upright and everything's going to be fine. So that's another benefit. Okay, so let's talk about the, equipment, so to speak, that you would need for soil blocking. A lot of this stuff you already have. Obviously, you probably don't have soil blocks if you have never soil blocked before, but other than that, a lot of these things you're going to have just around the house. So again, this is the main set of soil blocks if you're going to be potting up, or blocking up, I should say. This one is the micro. This is called the mini, even though it's not really miniature. And then this is just called the 4-inch, I think. And again, these are all Ladbrokes, the Ladbrokes brand. These fit into here and these fit into here, if I didn't make that clear. You can also get, again by Ladbrokes, a 1.5 inch soil blocker. This is 2 inches, this is 1.5 inch. This puts out 4 blocks, this puts out 5 blocks. Why would I use this? I'm not even suggesting you bother with it, to be honest. But for me, I do grow flowers. And so like right now I have 80 of these with Lisianthus seeds in them. I did that because I could fit 5 in a row, so I could fit more. Did I do? Yeah, I did 5. Sorry, I'm like, wait, what did I do? I did 5. So I have 4 sets of these on each 8x10 tray, which makes 20 blocks. It just yielded me what? I can't do math again, just as a reminder. But this is sort of the in-between size, and you really don't block up with these. You don't put these in them. So these are just the 1.5 inch, the 1.5 inch blocker is sort of a standalone blocker, but it can be handy, but I wouldn't recommend buying it right off the bat. Then I also have this one from M.I. Gardener. This is a great blocker. Is it a 2 inch or a 1.5 inch? I think it's a 2 inch blocker. Yeah, I think I got confused for a while there, but whatever. It's a 2 inch blocker, but it puts out 8 blocks at a time. So if you're doing a bunch of 2 inch blocks, this is really handy because you're going to cut your time in half, right? You're also going to need trays. So trays are kind of a big topic. So the first thing you could do, which you probably already have in your shed or whatever, is just a 10-20 tray. This is not ideal, but if it's all you have and you're not in the mood to be buying new stuff for a sort of new thing that you're trying out, then go with this. But the problem with these, number one, is they have ridges in the bottom. So these will stay in them okay, but the 3/4 inch blocks, no, they just fall over. They tip over in the channels. So you can't really use these successfully with the 3/4 inch blocks, but again, you could use them for 2 inch blocks. So this is one option. The other option, oh no, well, we'll just leave this right here. Why not? The other option that, again, you might just have in your house, in your freezer, are these styrofoam meat trays. This is a great size right here. I would recommend this size over, so this would be like for, what would be in here, like a 2.5 pound chuck roast, right? And then this would be like a pound of chicken or a pound of beef. You just can't fit as many in obviously in the smaller ones, but in these ones you can fit 4 sets of the micros. You could fit really just 2 sets of the 2 inch blockers and the same, let's see, 1, 2, 3, you could fit 3 sets of the 1.5 inch blockers in these. In the 1 pound, that was tricky. I started to do that and they barely fit. It's a really tight squeeze, but you could make it work with the 2 inch blocker. With the 1.5 inch, as you can see here, you could do 2 and they would be, so you don't want to use any trays that are bigger than what you need for that set of seeds that you're growing, that you're starting. So if I was doing, say, let's think, let's say I was doing tomatoes. Well, that's a bad example because why would I grow 40 tomatoes? I've grown more than that, but I don't do that anymore. But two things that have the same watering requirements, and that's kind of the next thing I'm going to talk about. So you don't want to, let me give you an example. Let's say you want to start 20 tomatoes. You're not going to put it on here because now you've wasted all the space, and all of the space is taking up real estate on your racks. So be mindful of what you're seeding, what you're starting in your trays. But these are free. They come with all your meat. So unless you're vegetarian, there's probably other stuff that comes in these that isn't meat, but that's option number 2. Option number 3 are these fiberglass trays. Okay, this is the first size I bought. These are too big. Again, think about it. Even if I'm using the 2-inch block, how many of basically the same things with the same watering requirements am I going to be wanting to start? I don't even remember how many you could fit on here, but let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 at least. 2, 3, 4. That's 8 times 4 is what? 32. So there's 32. Maybe you're going to start 32 lettuce plants all at once. I don't know. Maybe you're going to start 32 tomato plants. So then you could, but I'm just saying that for the most part, this is the perfect size. Okay. These are what I have. If you want to buy trays, these are fiberglass. They're by Cambro. Sorry. Cambro is the name of the company. This is a cam tray. If you buy them brand new from Cambro, they're extremely expensive. Even if you buy them from Cambro on Amazon, they're a set of 12 or over $200, like $230. That was way more money than I wanted to spend. So I found these on eBay. So you know, the problem with eBay is you kind of have to wait until someone acquires them to then sell them. But this is the perfect size in my opinion, because you can start a lot of things on them in a small space. Now, one thing you want to think about is, first of all, what can you start in soil blocking with soil blocking? What seeds, for example, could you start in this soil blocker? Small seeds. So things like tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, onion, celery, baby's breath, snapdragons, lisianthus, everything small, and especially if it's slow growing, because in many cases, like something like celery or snapdragons or lisianthus, whatever, they could stay in here depending on when you started them, but they could stay in these trays for a good 5 months before you needed to plant them out. I'm not sure about celery. It's just that celery takes a long time, up to a month to come up, but small seeds. So you can't start anything in here that doesn't fit. So you're not going to put a pumpkin seed in here. Obviously that's not going to fit. And then when you are, so if you're wanting to grow a pumpkin, a squash, cucumbers, you would definitely start in the 2-inch, and just like with pots, you would not start these until about, well, in this case, they grow even faster. So about 2 weeks before your last frost date. But for small seeds, and most of what we're growing, right, are pretty small, I would recommend starting in this, because then you have other things. Even lettuce, you're going to be sort of moving that out quickly, and then, you know, you have more room for other things. So that's that. Now, what can you start on the same tray? This is really important to be mindful of, and I have examples for you. So basically, these are the three sort of levels of if-then are this. Ideally, you want to start the same variety, not even the same type of plant, but the same variety on the same tray. So if you're going to grow, I'm trying to think, a bell pepper versus a cayenne pepper, you're going to want to do the bell peppers, all bell peppers on one tray, because of the growth rate and the watering requirements and all of that. If you can't afford the space to be putting all of one variety on one tray, then at least pick the same type of plant if you can. So like all peppers. You do not want to put things that have different watering requirements on the same tray. A perfect example would be, I have two for you, lettuce and snapdragons. Lettuce needs a lot of water for its whole life. Snapdragons prefer to have sort of a drought flood watering system or frequency. So if you have snapdragons and lettuce on the same tray, either the lettuce isn't going to get the water that it needs, or the snapdragons are going to get too much. So keep that in mind. Think watering requirements when you're putting different types of seeds on the same tray. Another example of something you wouldn't want to do would be tomatoes and peppers, because peppers do not like to be wet all the time. Tomatoes kind of do. So you keep those things in mind. What's next here? Yes, I have a list because otherwise we could just talk about this all day long. Okay, next up, examples of shouldn't have done that. What is this? Oh, here's a perfect example. This is a whole tray of feverfew. Hasn't come up yet, but it's just feverfew on one tray. So all of these plants are going to be happy as clams because they all have the same watering requirements. Okay, so that's good. This is a good thing to do. Now, if you can't do all one variety of plants, again, like I said, pick things that have similar watering requirements. This is sort of there because this is lettuce and this is two types of parsley. So they're both going to want basically the same amount of water. However, this is still a problem right now because I don't want to take this off because those seedlings are right there and I just want them to grow a little more before I pull plastic. But when they're in this stage, when they're just seeds in the soil blocks, you are only spraying them. I forgot to say, that's another thing that you need, is a sprayer and plastic wrap. You could try to find humidity domes that fit these in an efficient manner, but it's pretty tricky. You have to really have two like this to use a 1020 dome. And you don't necessarily, it doesn't always work out that way. So just plastic wrap and you can reuse it. You don't have to keep throwing it away. So you can just use a regular spray bottle, but you need to make sure, spray it in the sink, make sure it's on the finest mist possible, and don't be like this because you're gonna blow your seeds right out of your soil blocks. You wanna mist from above, okay? If you wanna step it up, have like a nicer one, which I did buy this, not because I wanted a fancy water mister. I actually hate this color, but it's like so construction zone. But this really hurts my hand, anymore. So this thing's great because, well, I'm not going to spray it, but you can just hold it down and spray, but it also has this little lock thing. So you could, if you're doing like all of your trays, you could lock that in and it just is a continuous, you could just switch hands and you're not squeezing anything. You're just holding the sprayer. So this is a really nice one. I don't know the brand, but if you go type in Misters or whatever it is, you'll see this one right away. It'll come right up. So the problem this is good. This is all feverfew. So when they're just seeded soil blocks, you're just going to come through and do this once a day. However, once they become plants, like I have plants here and I just have seeded blocks here. This side needs misting and this side needs watering. Whoops. So I don't really have a choice here because I can't just keep spraying the tops of these plants. It's just not a good idea. So I'm bottom watering all of them. And then I kind of have to like check and see, do I need to spray the seeded ones again or whatever? So that's, it's evident right here why that's an issue and why you really want to keep the same, again, either, ideally only one variety. Next up is one type of plant. And next up, bare minimum, this is the least ideal, but it is still better than not thinking about it at all or putting snapdragons and lettuce on the same tray, is make sure that whatever you're putting on the same tray will have the same, hopefully they have about the same germination time and then also have the same watering requirements because they're all in a tray. How is that different than a plug tray or pots? Well, if you have a whole plug tray and you go to water them, maybe you can see these guys, oh, somebody forgot to water this half yesterday. So you only have to water a few plants and you can do that, but these are on a tray. So everybody's getting water no matter what, when you're watering. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Next, very important thing to keep in mind. Did I forget something? Let's see. Plastic wrap, right? Oh, markers. You can't put markers in these. It's just one more thing you could do to compromise your soil block, especially those little ones. You can't put a marker in them. So what you could do instead, this says basil, cardinal, is just make a marker if that's all you have. You know, sometimes we just have like the ones we recycle from plants we buy and stuff. You can just write on it and put it right in there. That's perfectly fine. Another thing you can do, and I'm a Virgo, so I'm doing this, is I'm taking painter's tape, and I had to get the kind purple because it's prettier. And you can just write the name of your plant, the date you started it, whatever, and put it, where did I put this? Where are you? Oh, these aren't, there's nothing in there. Sorry. Let's see. Right there. It says feverfew. Now, is this tape marker thing going to last forever? Maybe not, but I could just go right back over it and write on it again if I see it fading. But that way you don't have tags floating around in there. It's not a problem if you do, but the tape is another option. Okay, so we've talked about misting the top of seeded blocks before they've germinated, but once they've germinated, oh boy, none of these guys need water. Oh, these need a little more water. Okay, so these are established plants. So what you want to do is come through. The cool thing about these soil blocks, again, once they have, well, it's always cool, but you're misting the tops of seeded blocks every day. Blocks that have plants in them, you aren't necessarily going to water every day because you're going to come through and you're going to look and you can see if you can touch and feel. I mean, oftentimes, well, in pots, you can, put your finger on the top, but you don't really know what's going on all the way down at the bottom. But with soil blocks, you can see. So you really can tell if your plants need water or not. These don't, but we're just for the sake of science, we're going to water them anyway. So when you have established plants, you're going to bottom water and you're going to come through whenever they need it, every other day or so or whatever, and you're going to flood the tray just like that. And you do want a watering can like this with a long skinny spout. So these are cheap. These are real cheap, but you do want one of these if you're going to soil block. You're going to wait about 5 minutes. People will say, wait 5-10 minutes. If 10 minutes is okay, but just don't go past that because you do not want your soil blocks sitting in water all day long. You're going to get all kinds of issues. So, but I say 5 minutes because they're going to be, what needs to have occurred is going to occur within 5 minutes. So let's pretend it's been 5 minutes. I come back and there is still standing water in the tray. We don't want that in there. So you're just going to pour it off. Just tip the tray and pour off the excess. Now you don't have to get every single drop out. That little glistening bit down at the bottom is going to get absorbed and evaporate too. You can take this. Obviously you're going to have more than this because you're probably going to have more than one tray and just go water a houseplant with it. So you don't have to be pouring this down the drain. It's another advantage. Let's say you put the water in and you're still in here working on other plants and it's only been about a minute and you look over and it's like this, all the water is already soaked up. That's your clue that you didn't put enough water in there, that they need a little bit more. So you're just going to go through, add some more water. You can even flood the channels again, flood the tray. That's fine. Wait another 2-3 minutes and then tip your tray and drain off the rest. So that's how you bottom water soil blocks in trays. Is bottom water. Don't pour the water on top no matter what size they are. Don't do that. You're going to compromise the block on some level. It's going to start to disintegrate. So that's that. I think the last main thing I want to tell you, and this could be the most important thing I tell you about soil blocking. So what do I want to do here? What do I want to show you? Okay, I'll do this. You see this? Which one is this? This is, oh, fantastic. I didn't label this. Oh, yeah, okay. I did it wrong. I put my label on the wrong side. This is butter crunch lettuce and little gem. I mean, how gorgeous is this? It's just incredible. We're going to start eating it soon. So this tray looks great. There's a couple in here that are a little smaller, but that's okay. But this tray, and I've already taken out the ones that died, so I can't show you that anymore. I did it yesterday, but I had some. It was a full 12 like this, a tray full of 12 lettuce plants that I did the same thing with. They were this size, the lettuce, and then I made 2-inch soil blocks and I blocked them up, sorry. And obviously this tray worked out really well. I did the exact same thing to this tray, but I had, you see how I only have 6 left? So I lost 6 of them. Why? What happened? Here's what happened. When I had, this is like musical trays here. When I had my 3/4 inch blocks with the lettuce in them, it was the first time I had blocked up. So I was a little nervous about it to begin with. And again, this is why I'm doing this video, because like this was something that I did not think about. I couldn't even figure out what the problem was for about a week and a half. I'm just racking my brain. So here's what happened. I blocked them up just like I did with that tray, except with that tray, I watered the 3/4 inch blocks first. With this tray, I didn't water the 3/4 inch blocks first because I was liking it better that they kind of held together a little bit more than those did. I mean, those held together fine, so just water. Because these were, not these exactly, but the 3/4 inch lettuce blocks were dry. The blocks were dry, and so they were easier for me to handle and hold. So even though when you make soil blocks, these blocks, the ones you block up into, are very wet. The soil is very wet. I took very dry 3/4 inch blocks and put them in there thinking, oh, they're just gonna like soak up all the water. I mean, I didn't even think about it. I just did it. And I was like, these are obviously wet enough. Everybody's gonna sort of commingle and it's gonna be great. But if you think about it, it's really hard. There's no way a little 3/4 inch block is gonna be able to sort of filter feed enough water to get an adequate drink out of a soil block that has some moisture in it. It's not enough. So basically what these little blocks, when I potted them up in here, they got dehydrated to death and died. So all I had to do to remedy that problem was water them first. So that's a really important step. When you're gonna block up, whether you're blocking up from here to here or here to here, water the small ones that you're blocking up. Water them before you put them into your new block, okay? Okay, so let me talk about some other mistakes I've made. Oh, the mistakes I've made. Again, nothing catastrophic, but like, had I known, I would have had more success. So mistake number 1 was buying these big giant trays, which I already kind of covered. But unless you're a farmer, which you're probably not watching this video if you are, I'm not a farmer. I'm talking to people like me, backyard gardeners. That's who I'm assuming is watching this video. This, you just imagine how many soil blocks you can fit on here and think to yourself, am I gonna grow that much of anything, at least all at once? Probably not. So this is a gigantic waste of real estate, and yeah, that's all there is to it. Because again, remember, you can't put things on here that have different watering requirements. So don't buy big, huge trays. That was mistake number 1. I just saw other flower farmers actually that had them, and I was like, great, yes, get those trays. I ordered them. And then I got them and I went, you know what? That was dumb. Second mistake was when I made my first tray, and I actually made it a meat tray. I'm smashing my meat trays. Second mistake was I didn't put food. I didn't put the plant food that I use, which is Trifecta by M.I. Gardener. It's all I use ever. In pots, outside, in soil blocks, whatever. I use Trifecta. Well, I think the problem was I didn't think this was gonna work. It was just my first time. It was like 9 o'clock at night and I'm like, I'm gonna make some soil blocks. And so I did it and I was like, hooray. And then I realized, and I seeded them, I got all done and I realized there's no food in there. Now, I know seeds don't need food to germinate. Please don't come at me. I know that. But personally, well, for one thing with soil blocks, how are you ever gonna get Trifecta, if that's what you use, into, for example, this block? Because these can stay in here. Plants, slow growers can stay in here for months. They're going to need food. So you can't, there's no way to get Trifecta in there. You can't incorporate it. You can't incorporate it into here once you've made the blocks. Because how? You're gonna smash them. You can't do it. You can't incorporate dry plant food into soil blocks. You have to incorporate it into the bin of soil. And I'll show you that in the next video when I show you how to actually soil block. So that was mistake number, whatever we're at, 2, 3, 5, I don't know. And same sort of moment there. Again, I put snapdragons with lettuce. Don't do that. You gotta match them up. You gotta match up the the plant requirements per tray. And the last mistake I made, and this was kind of a 2-for-1, one option when you seed, okay, this is moistened, so you probably can't see it that well, but there's vermiculite on top of here, that like speckly stuff. Well, and this is the proper vermiculite type. I've never bought vermiculite on its own before. I would never have a reason to before this. And so, but the reason to, if you want, you don't have to do this, but if you want, once you make your soil blocks and seed them, you can take this fine stuff and just sprinkle it over the top of them. Just like that. And vermiculite will absorb excess water, and so it helps a little bit to stave off algae growth. It does not do a perfect job. I'm here to tell you that. You can also, if you get algae, you can sprinkle some cinnamon on. But anyway, that's what it's for. So if you want to go that route, this is what you get, this nice fine stuff. But I've never bought it before. I didn't know that it would come in different shapes and sizes and coarseness. So I just went to the garden center and got a big old bag of it. And I was like, cha-ching, okay, thank you. And I came home, poured it, got my soil blocks done, poured this in a bowl and went, oh no, that's not right. So this is not what you want. I'm gonna bring both of these up to you and show them to you, but I have to do them one at a time so I can hold my phone and see where I'm aiming. But anyway, here's what you do not want. Where is it? All right, I can put this right here. This is really chunky. Can you see that adequately? Yeah, you can. Super chunky, big. Some of these pieces are as big as the top of almost the size of a soil block itself. That's not what you want. What you want is this. It's like very fine, and it's consistently fine. So that's what you want, okay? So don't make that mistake. Don't be like me. Know what you're buying, folks. This is not the right material. So you can, if you buy it and you can't return it, you could mix it into your soil or something, but you do want this. This is the right material. And with that, that is pretty much all I wanted to say today, you guys. I know this is a long video, but there's so many just weird little, that was my shoe, by the way. There are so many weird little nuanced things that, again, at least I watched a million videos, and even I was like, I never thought of that. That never crossed my mind before I embarked on this whole thing. And in some cases, like not putting plant food in your blocks before you make them and seed them and you're done. Well, it's too late. Now, what you can do, if you make that mistake or you don't use Trifecta or you whatever, or you just forget and you don't have it in there, is use a liquid plant food. I just don't use liquid plant food. It's just a personal preference. It's perfectly fine. But, you know, if it's like a fish emulsion or whatever, that's stinky. I don't want that. But I think with pretty much all of them, you have to kind of water with the fertilizer, or like remember to put the fertilizer in the water and do that on a regular basis. And with Trifecta, it's kind of a one and done. I mean, I started sort of a weak version, a weak amount of the Trifecta in the soil to either start in pots or soil block, and that's all they get for the whole time. They're inside. And then once I put them outside, then I give them a grown-up dose of it, helping, one would say. And that is it for the entire season. I mean, Trifecta is amazing, so I would definitely recommend that. So parting words here for you. I have one last thing to say, and then I will get out of your hair. You don't need to buy all these soil blockers. Do we have them all in focus here? Yeah. You do not need to buy all of these soil blockers. Not any particular one is very expensive, considering they last like literally a lifetime if you take care of them. Taking care of them, by the way, is just rinse them out after you use them. And what I do, this would be a good thing to show you, but I can't because the tripod's in the way. What I do to rinse mine out so I'm not, getting water in my sink, in my drain, water, I didn't mean that, soil, so that I don't get a bunch of soil in my sink. I have a big Tupperware like this, and I fill it with water, and I take these guys. I haven't used this big one yet, but all these other ones, I take it and I have a injured hand right now, and you go like this in the tub of water and get most of the soil out, and then you can take it to the sink and rinse it the rest of the way. But that way your significant other won't get mad when the sink gets clogged with a bunch of soil over time. And you can do them with any of these if you have a big enough bin or tote. So that's how you take care of them. Make sure you get all the soil out and then let them air dry completely, and even wipe them off. You don't want them to get rusty. So there's that. But you don't have to buy all these blockers. That's what I wanted to say. My parting words to you are, if you could only if you could only afford to buy one, or you only want to buy one, which would probably be the smart thing to do when you're first starting out, even if you just get one and do some sets of soil blocks and then just see if you even like want to do this, just buy the 2-inch one right here. Some would say just buy the 1.5-inch, but the problem with this is you're limiting yourself just about a 1/2 inch square inch. You're limiting yourself just a little bit on what you could start in here. Like if you wanted to start your zucchinis or cucumbers, you're only going to be able to have about 2 weeks in these soil blocks before they have to go out. But this one, you might only have a week or a week and a half. You might get 3 weeks out of this one. You see my point? The 2 inches is just a lot more versatile. Yes, it takes up a bit more space, but not that much, but it gives your plants a little bit more space, and that's more important. So I would just go with the 2-inch. That would be my recommendation. And then, you know, these black inserts, by the way, they don't come with any of these blockers. You have to buy them separately, but all of the 1.5-inch and 2-inch blockers by Ladbrokes come with these. You can't see it, but they're dibblers. So when I make a 1.5-inch block or a 2-inch block, if I'm just going to seed right into that, but these little white inserts make a little void in the top of the block so you can seed right directly into them. Anyway, that's it for today, you guys. I know this is a long video, but there was a lot to cover, and I hope it helped you out, and I hope that you happen to be watching this video before you embark on soil blocking so you can avoid some of these mistakes that I made when I first started. So that's it for now, guys. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.